to master complexity that takes you from what I call growth to the ability to scale. So you got a 2-partner practice, that's one thing. You want a 20-partner practice, you've got to master the ability to scale, not just to grow.
Hey, what's up, Masters? Welcome to another episode of Path to Mastery Podcast. And today we are with the Mr. Les Mckeown. How's it going, Les?
Just great. Thanks, Dave. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. Little crazy, like I told you. Just got a lot of stuff moving, a lot of moving parts and doing some stuff. But you know, it's growth, right? You're a growth guy. Growth is growth.
The lights of growth. Exactly.
That's uncomfortable, isn't it, Les? Is it? Is that normal?
Complexity is the first thing that trips you up. That's what happens.
Complexity. Yeah. Well, what do you mean by that anyway? We'll start there.
Well, you know, what I mean is actually something very specific. So a little bit of background real quick. Your listeners will probably work out within about 5 seconds from now. From my accent, I'm not from these parts. I'm from Texas.
I thought you were from Boston for some reason.
I'm from Ireland, so that's pretty close. I grew up in Ireland. Originally was a CPA, or British equivalent of a CPA, and then I turned into what now would be called a serial entrepreneur, but we didn't have that term back then. So I launched with other people. I launched 42 businesses before I was 35, and you know, Dave, even a dumb Irishman like me, if you do something like that often enough, you begin to see repeating patterns. And so one of the repeating patterns that I saw was that every successful business typically starts with a very particular type of leader, founder. They're what I call a visionary leader. Most founders, they've got a high risk factor. They'll plunge into something that's got an 80% chance of failure. They see the big picture. You know, they have a high squirrel factor. You know, you don't want to meet them on a Monday morning
Squirrel?
after the squirrel factor. You know, it's like shiny blue balls. They're always chasing squirrels.
That's me. Yeah, got it.
If you bump into one of them on Monday morning after they've been on vacation, it's just a nightmare. They've got 42 new things they're going to ask you to do.
Oh, dude.
But it's that enthusiasm that, you know, it gets the new venture up. But basically, 80% of all new ventures fail in the first 3 years. And the ones that succeed have got a vision, right? But what happens is, and I'm getting to the complexity issue, is they typically know whether they would use the terminology or not, that visionaries are really starters. They like to come up with big ideas. And although they could do it if they have to, doing the detailed, what I call dirty fingernail work, it sort of drives them crazy. So they go out and they find somebody that I call the operator. They go get somebody who's an operator, is just a finisher. You know, so you got the starter coming up with the big ideas, and he or she finds himself or herself 2 or 3 what I call operators. And those are just ruthless finishers. That people go through breeze block walls, just make it happen. And those two together take the business out of early struggle into the second of a series of 7 stages that all businesses go through, into this reasonably, comparatively simple world that I call fun. Highly technical phrase. It's a stage of growth called fun. And basically, you've got a visionary with 2, 3, 4 operators just conducting the orchestra, saying, do this, do this, do that. And that's just a great time to live. We say yes to everything, and then somehow we make it happen, right? Your listeners will know this. You never turn down a new client, new customer. You say yes, somehow make it happen. But what happens during that fun stage is every single day, your business just gets a little more complex. You get more clients, maybe open another office, you start dealing with a different type of property. You know, you get to know a specific neighborhood, and then another one, and it just gets you get more staff. It gets a little more complex. And at some point, that complexity just reaches a stage where it tips over, and you can't anymore deliver consistent quality for your clients because you're too busy fixing potholes in the road the whole time, which are mostly self-inflicted. You've got big and the complex. And when I say big, it might be 5 people, 10 people, 15 people in a service business like real estate. And at that stage, something incredibly important has to happen, which is the visionary and the operators need to understand the need to bring into their management team somebody I call the processor. The processor is the person who got left brain, sorts out systems and processes, puts things in place. And the difficulty is that sounds as simple as all get out. Problem is the visionary and the processor have got completely different 180-degree separate worldviews. Visionary says yes to everything, work it out later. Processor says no at the start, and maybe we'll get to yes if they think that we can do this. Glass half full, glass half empty. At least that's how they see each other. Wants risk, needs risk, totally risk averse. So those are the, the initial challenges of growth. And that's why I say complexity is what gets us in the end. It's the ability to master complexity that takes you from what I call growth to the ability to scale. So you got a 2-partner practice. That's one thing. You want a 20-partner practice. You've got to master the ability to scale, not just to grow.
Yeah, I love that. And it relates to some weird thing going on my forehead here, which is just new complexities with Zoom and lighting today, but it just fits.
Right.
It's
always something, man.
It's all good.
It's always something.
It is always something. So listen, I love the conversation, and I think, well, let me do this. Let me go through your bio first, so people even know who they're talking to. And then I want to kind of continue down this path for a little bit. So Les Mckeown is the founder and CEO of Predictable Success. Les first began to recognize recurring growth patterns early in his career as a serial entrepreneur. In addition to being involved in the launch of more than 40 companies before he was 35, he was at the same time a founding elder in a fast-growing church while serving on the board of a number of charities for not-for-profits. Les used the experience he gained during that time to co-found one of his first business incubators in the world, which he and his then business partner developed over a decade into a multinational consulting business that advised the curation and growth of hundreds of organizations worldwide. All right, I am, struck by similarity of issues faced by growing organizations. Let's begin to codify his understanding of the repeating patterns of growth, published in his Wall Street Journal and USA Today bestseller, Predictable Success, which Les is holding up. I love the dominoes, by the way. You'll have to tell us about that. Getting your organization on the growth track and keeping it there in 2010, followed by in 2012, there's Synergist, how to lead your team to predictable success. Les is a trusted advisor to fast growth SMEs in thriving not-for-profits, as well as Fortune 500 companies, a number of the largest government agencies in the world. Awesome. So Les, thanks for joining us today, by the way. And
great. Thanks for inviting me.
Appreciate it. Sorry I couldn't do a better job on your bio. I'm known for butchering a good bio. And I even went out of my way to read yours again before we started, but then found out I was reading tomorrow's guest.
Well, I should have written Irish. That was the problem. That was where it all went wrong.
I'm the guy that you're talking about earlier, right? So million things, not enough support helping me with the million things, and it's kind of a mess. But so let's go back to that. So you talked about like an operator, a finisher, and a processor, right? Were those the three that you named?
Our visionary at the start, get some operators just to make things happen, and then we have a processor that we need at a certain stage in growth. And what typically happens, Dave, is that the visionary and the operators, during that fun stage of growth, when you're just saying yes to everything and making it happen, what happens at that point is that's when we build the myths and legends of the business. We do the ridiculously outrageous things where we pull off, super person type stunts. And those are the sorts of things that they'll talk about later on. Remember back in the day when we did this and when we did that. And what happens is we learn what we think is an eternal way to succeed, which is just to say yes and somehow bring brute force and make it happen. And there comes a point when that just taps us out. But why would we change? It's been successful up to now. So we just amp up the effort and throw more people at it. And we just get exhausted and tired.
Yeah.
And people at a stage of growth I call whitewater, where they're sitting around thinking, what just happened? A year ago, I had a highly successful business. Did I and everybody else just get stupid? And the answer is no. It just the business got complex. And
betting that's what leads to the burnout too, right? I mean, it would come to a place where I know because I experienced that years ago in my business where I started not to like my business anymore.
Yeah, it's just not fun anymore.
Yeah, and you're stuck in the weeds. You're not really stuck. Like I'm not stuck in the earlier today. I'm on tech trying to figure out how to put an automation together. Like that's the last thing I want to be doing. Right. Putting and my assistant's on there too. Thank God but yeah, those are the last things I need to be doing. I need to be talking to clients and on podcasts, not figuring out automation broadcasts.
Correct. That's exactly right. And that's a small example.
And how many people are doing that, Les? How many, like, what's the common, if you had to pick a number, like percentage wise, how many entrepreneurs are stuck in?
Yeah, you look at any numbers of the number of business entities that are in the US, there's a huge tail. About 80% in number are 1, 2-man, 3-man businesses. The vast majority. My dear friend, Carol Roth, wrote a fantastic book called The Entrepreneur Equation. And she points out that for the vast majority of people, they start what they believe is a new business, but it actually is what she calls a jobby. It's just a hobby that's turned into a job that pays them usually a little less than market comp, a little less than they would get if they just went and took a job, but at least they can say it's their own. And I'm not knocking that. I'm just saying that making that transition and getting to the point where you have a sustainable business that's got a life of its own and won't fall over if you do, that takes a lot of work. The most challenging part of that is realizing the stage at which what got you here won't get you there. That all the stuff that I was doing that was right, but it isn't anymore. And as you say, I need to get people to do this, or I need to get people to help me with that.
Well, we have to, otherwise, I mean, we hit a ceiling, right? You can only do so much. And like you said earlier, then it just becomes messy at some point. And in order to grow, you have to. So what is the next level? Is it I think before we started recording, you said it's here. Is it the mindset first? Is it hiring the right person? Like what's the next step?
Well, there are two really key transitions. And the first one actually comes a little before what we've just been talking about. And here's the way it works out. And I would be prepared to bet that a vast percentage of your listeners will be nodding their heads and thinking, yeah, I think I've got some of that going on when I explain this to you. Here's where most small businesses, particularly I have to say service businesses, manufacturing businesses can do it too, but real estate agencies, accountants practices, engineering practices, all that sort of stuff is particularly prone to this. You remember I mentioned that most successful businesses start with a visionary. And then they add an operator. So we've got the person who's the big ideas, let's get this started, high risk taking. And then there's the person who's just ruthlessly got it, boss, I'll make that happen. Here's the reality. Huge number of people who start their own businesses are quite capable of being both. They are visionary operators. That's their DNA. I have a little self-assessment that our folks can go look at it. It's at synergistquiz.com, and they can go find out what they are. But here's the thing. You would think if what we need is to be a visionary, to have a visionary and have an operator, and that's what we need in order to make this business grow. Well, if I'm both a visionary and an operator, I'm in. I'm made up. I've got this in spades. This is really going to work. The opposite happens because you end up doing both, and you get stuck in something I call the artisan's loop. And I'll explain it real quick. Here's what happens when you start your business. What
loop?
Artisan, like somebody who makes, an artisan. So you want to build a business, you end up actually being trapped into being an artisan. And here's what I mean by this. When you're just starting out, the act of selling your services is a visionary thing. because you don't have a name, you don't have a reputation, nobody knows you. So you got to go out there and be, front it and, look good, sound good. So you're out there being visionary and marketing and selling your services. Then you get some clients and you've got to deliver. And that's the operator thing. So here's what happens. You can do both. So you're out there and you sell. And then you think, oh, right, my date card's full now. I got to deliver. But while you're delivering, you're not selling. So you sit down and you think, oh, shoot, I got to fill next month's mortgage. I got to pay next month's bill. So get out there and sell. And then, oh, I've sold. So I better deliver. And you end up going around in this circle where you're selling, delivering, selling, delivering. But the circle's not getting any bigger. And you're just getting tired. And the reason I call it an artisan loop is because I had a very good friend many years ago, and he just makes guitars. Really world-class acoustic guitars. Any singer-songwriter you know of will have one of his guitars. He only makes and sells 2 a year, but that's his choice. He makes and sells, then makes and sells. But he's never going to be any bigger than selling 2 guitars a year because that's all he wants to do. But if you want to grow a business, the first decision you've got to make is, are you going to be the visionary, which probably the answer is yes, or the operator? The answer should be no, and you should go out and get somebody, because you've got to be able to sell and deliver at the same time. So that's the first thing, is to separate those two roles.
Well, yeah, I guess with your friend, I guess it depends on how much he's selling his guitars for. That would be.
Well, that's how you
right. So
he just keeps jacking the price up. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that, a lot of people, that's the lifestyle that they want to live. That's fantastic. But if you want to build a substantial standalone business, when he decides to retire, the business ends, right? He's not going to be able to stop working and get income.
Well, I mean, that's similar to the real estate space. I mean, you've got, some of these, like when I was running my team, we were selling about 120 houses a year. So you have to have a system in place. We had 3 admins, 4 team members. So there was a system. Then you have, and we were in a price point average about 300,000. So we can do that. And, you're doing that. You're doing about close to 30 million in volume. You take an agent out in Boston and they've got an average sale price of 2 million. Well, they're making the same amount of money selling 15 houses, and they don't need all those extra systems and stuff.
Right.
But to your point, there are a lot of real estate agents that they've built a business that's completely dependent on them. Like they are the product.
Right.
So when they leave, there's nothing. Like, does that make so? So how do you help somebody like that?
Well, the first thing is to establish what it is that they want to achieve. And some folks are not only perfectly happy with that, that's what they want. They want the personal fame, if you would call it that. They want name recognition. They want to be the guy or the guy or the gal that, their name is above the door and the business is them and they are the business. And if that's what you want, just stay with that and don't mess with it. The problem is, we've got the second category of folks, and there's not a problem with them. And they're the ones that say, no, that's absolutely not what I want. I want to build a real estate business, a practice. I want to not manage professionals. I want to have a professionally managed business so that it's got its own identity and it can pay me in my retirement. And it's an asset I can sell and all the rest of it. The problem, if your mind is very much fixed on either one of those, it's just a question of mechanics. How do you make each one happen? The problem I find is somebody who says they want the latter, they want to grow a business, but actually they so much need to be the center of it all that they self-harm the growth of the business. So simple things, not so simple, but important things like putting systems and processes in place and actually adhering to them. What happens in the middle ground is, Big Dog puts the systems and processes in place for everybody but him, right? And then before you know it, other people aren't, doing things the standard way either. Or they start to build a business, and then as soon as somebody looks as if they might be as big a producer as they are, they cut them loose because they don't like the rivalry, So it's okay to say, I just want to be the named person. I'm going to work this. And as you say, I'm going to keep putting my fees up to get to the point or push my average house value up so that my fees go up. That's all. That's fine. It's also fine to say, I want to build a local.
Is it
or
ego
regional.
too, though? Ego in there, perfectionism. I know those are some of the things I dealt with earlier in my career. Everything needs to be perfect. Only I can do it that way.
Yeah, and sometimes those two don't even overlap. Sometimes it's just everything needs to be the way I do it, and it may well be that it's actually far from perfect, but that's just the way somebody wants to do it.
Yeah.
And you know that is a challenge. So, for example, I have a group of people who I train and license in my model, scale architects, people who take my predictable success model and use it with other people. I had to learn very early on, if I was serious about growing that group of people, I couldn't make them into mini me's. That was not the right way to do it. They didn't not to be, they didn't need to turn into me and do things exactly like I did. What they needed to do was learn the model and know it and then deliver it the way that was them. So they may have different personalities. Hopefully they very much do have. You know, they've got different anecdotes to tell. They've got different approaches in landing business. But as long as they understand the core model, that's really all that matters.
I love that you said that. Learn the model and deliver it as it was them. Is that what you said?
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
our own way. You know, don't try to be me.
I love that. Yeah, I want to shift gears and get to your book, Predictable Success. Talk to us. What's the essence of the book? And
So
obviously
what I
what we're talking
discovered
about.
so I started those 40 odd businesses, and then as you read in the bio, I started what would now be called an incubation center. You know, something like Y Combinator that we all know so well.
Yeah.
Within about, I did that with a partner, sadly now deceased, and he and I eventually got that to a business with 110 or so people, 13 offices worldwide, and we were launching hundreds of businesses every year, and then helping them through their growth. And I discovered that there are 7 stages of growth that every single organization, it's actually not just for profits, but it applies to not for profits just as much. There are 3 growth stages. There's a peak stage, and then there's 3 decline stages. And that's what I talk about in the book, Predictable Success. And I have the great pleasure of working with leadership teams in helping them decide what stage do I want to be at and how do I get there. And it's just it's a delight.
So with relations to the book, you had said there's 3 stages. What is the stage that most people get stuck on? Is there any particular place where you see the most?
So there's 7 stages in total, and 4 of them are highly problematic. So there's the what I call early struggles. So it's the startup stage, and 80% of all new businesses fail at startups. So that's getting past. That's the first thing. Then with a stage that I call fun, and that's basically early stage growth. Just say yes, make it happen. Then we hit the third stage, which is the second of the problematic ones, is that stage that I call whitewater. And that's just the stage. Essentially, the business needs to grow up. It needs to, you know, put on its big boy pants, get some systems and processes in place, codify what we do, start saying no to some things, not just say yes to everything, be very clear about who we are. And that's when the business, you know, it turns into a mature organization. The founder's challenge at that point is to become a CEO. You're the founder all the way up to that point. If you try to keep leading the business as a founder through whitewater, your skill set will fail. You've got to transition into a CEO, and not all founders can do that. Many of them decide just to go back to fun, be a mom and pop or a small player in a local market and stay there, rightly so, because that's what they want to do. Some just sell at this point, but about a third of them make the transition into becoming CEOs, and they hit the peak stage, which I call predictable success. And at predictable success, you put your foot in the gas pedal, the car goes forward, you know, because you've got the foundation of systems and processes together with creativity, innovation, risk-taking. And that's the business at full manhood, womanhood, personhood, whatever you want to call it. If we do the right things, stay there indefinitely. What happens in most businesses, and you'll have seen this, Dave, over and over again, as our listeners will have to, what happens in most businesses, we just put systems and processes in, and it did this great thing, got us to this stage called predictable success. So let's stick more processes and systems in. and we become over processed and we start down the decline stage. And I'll not take us through that because it's highly unlikely any of our listeners are in those decline stages. But that's essentially what happens is we overcook our dependence in systems and processes, and we begin to get creaky, arthritic, bureaucratic, and we start to decline.
Interesting. Okay. I love it. How do people, Les, get in touch with you if they want to copy your book? What's the best way to do that?
Just come straight to predictablesuccess.com. It's all there. You can get a copy. I just pay shipping to send it out to you. There's tons of free stuff there on the website, predictablesuccess.com.
Predictablesuccess.com. All right, perfect. And just to kind of tie everything together, if you know, what do you want everybody that's listening to take from what we talked about today? If everybody's going to walk away with one thing.
The number one thing that most folks, and why should they, don't realize is that every organization goes through these stages. It's not unusual to be going through them. Doesn't make it any easier, but you're not alone. Real quick, here's what most people think. Going to start a new business. I'm pretty sure it's going to be tough for a while. So they know there'll be this early struggle phase. They might not give it that name, but they know it's going to be tough for a while. But they think if I get through it, then I'll have my business and I'll just keep rinse and repeat year in, year out. And that's the stage I call fun. Most people think that's it. And so whenever whitewater hits, they fear for their business. They think it's dying. They don't realize we're just one step away from that peak stage. They think, oh, the business is about to die. So what I would say is recognize that you're not alone. This is a pattern every business goes through, and there is a way through whitewater to that peak stage, which I call predictable success. And I show precisely how to do that on the website at predictablesuccess.com.
This is good. One more question. So when we started, it can be painful growing, right? Is that accurate? Like I said that.
Oh yeah, it can be very painful.
What you just said is like, that's where most people quit, Les. Like you're almost there, but right? Is that true?
That's exactly right. So here's the analogy that I use, Dave. When we're growing during the early days, it's like, if you could imagine your industry, if you're in the real estate industry, just imagine the market that you could be in is like a giant skyscraper, right? You could get as high as that skyscraper goes. The way we grow in the early stages, we just charge into the stairwell and we shout charge and we start running up the stairs, and our team runs behind us and we run up the stairs. Oh, we got up another level. Oh, we got up another level. And then at some point we just get exhausted. And we're, oh my good grief. And then we gather our strength and we run up a few more stairs. What it means to go into whitewater is you're running out of energy and resources. You got to build an elevator. Being in predictable success, no more running up the stairs like that. I'm not saying it's easy, but you've got an elevator. You walk in, you decide where you want to go, you press the button, the elevator goes up. It can come down, you go up. Here's the trick. A building doesn't have an elevator in it. You've got to build it. That's what those systems and processes are. The systems and processes are your growth elevator. But that is very painful for many visionaries. They find it very tough to stick to that because they remember the glory days, the myths and legends. And so they just, they tinker at the elevator for a few days or weeks and months. And then eventually they lose all patience and they just shout charge and they jump into the stairwell again and try running up the stairs. Surely sheer force of energy will get us there. Well, yeah, another couple of stairs and then you'll be exhausted again.
Well, I can relate myself, brother. So I just want to say I appreciate you being here today. Thank you for that. And yes, it's fantastic. I took a ton of notes, as I'm telling you as well who are listening to this. Take some notes. Reach out to Les. Get a copy of his book. It's predictablesuccess.com.
That's it. All one word.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.